All right, so I'm sure all of you have heard the new Gaslight District news. The first season has just been greenlit, and if you haven't seen my, I was right! Enthusiastic revelation to the fact that some of my theories may be correct, I just kind of wanted to go over the scenes that we see here in the trailer, the teaser, the season 1 reveal, because I think I can kind of piece together more theories as well as give more information why I think my theories are correct, as well as alterations to see where these may go if my theories are incorrect. Some of the first imaging that we see very quickly on at the start of it is two individuals. They kind of look like a stag or a dung beetle. They almost look like they're dressed like a gang or even detectives, potentially undercover. We then see a bunch of masked individuals. Again, this is about to become a common occurrence. It almost looks like they're gagged almost. And then we see an image of the hear no, see no, and speak no evil monkeys, which it's an old Japanese proverb. Another sort of, in this case, Eastern religious idea of avoiding wrongdoing. Then it immediately swaps over to Mel breaking a gaslight lantern. Going back though, these masked individuals who are gagged, and then the arrival of this stag or dung beetle gang that we see again with an image of a giant creature and all these beetles lined up like cultists in red, has a lot of religious interpretations to it, as if this is penance for people, or maybe even an arm of the Virtue Core. Because this creature looks, while incredibly large, eerily similar, at least a part of it, to the creature we see Temperance working on in the laboratory. After we see Mel breaking the gaslight lantern, all of this where I mention Mel and you can't really see her, it's because we see her glove, and so we can assume this is Mel or a Mel, and I'll get to that. Close-ups of a lot of characters, including a new one with a skeleton hand jeweled in fine jewelry. But in one of these images, someone's biting on what looks like Mel's hand, and the whole cast flies down the drain. And while toilets and garbage and filth are very gaslight adjacent, this could also very well be the idea of flushing something down the drain, like secrets. A lot of secrets / religious silence is seen a lot in this teaser. We then see a painting of the smiling dead, and I can't figure out which one it is, but a lot of the paintings that we see are very reminiscent of Renaissance era biblical imagery. So again, that sort of Bible imagery. And then we see an image that I use to reaffirm that my Mel is a homunculus theory, this mechanical individual with cultists to their flank that, again, are kind of shaped like Mel. Same eyes, same face, but they're all covered up. Then we see Diligence outside the butcher shop. I did theorize that the Virtue Core was going to hunt Ken down and try to cut him open to get Temperance back. But ironically, outside looks very catastrophic, like when the Angel Mother was attacking Paradise Lost in her fury. So is this during the rapture, or is that just what the outside looks like? Because the only time we really see the butcher shop is at the start of the episode, and at that point, it's a quick zoom in and we don't get to see the surrounding area. And here's where we see the giant multi-headed bug creature again, and it's just the red. It's the amount of red that these cultists wear that give me less, oh, this is a rival gang, and more of Spanish Inquisition vibe, where these guys are an arm of the Virtue Core, or perhaps another religious organization housed in the Gaslight District instead. Now, a lot of these next frames could either be Mel dreaming or being inside of the Inferno, because there's a lot of wetness, there's a lot of ice, and we just don't know enough about what the Inferno is or how you get there to know if she's just going to bed and dreaming all this nightmarish stuff happening because of her confrontation with the Angel Mother, or if this stuff directly happens in the series. What gets me shortly after that is, again, we see Mel or a Mel beating Mud's head in. And yeah, we kind of know that the denizens of the Gaslight District can come back. There's just something about how family they are, how close they are, that this wouldn't happen unless maybe Mel was hiding something, or Mud and Brett had found out Mel was the human, or the Virtue Core sent another Mel to fight Mud. It's not said for certain, of course. it's a teaser. It's not meant to give us answers right now, but it gives a lot of ideas of a rift is going to happen to the Smiling Dead, especially since later we see a nice little snippet of them all together chugging down some alcohol, like a gang, a family. So either a rift will come between them, because they're either going to meet another Mel or they're going to give Mel a reason to fight. We get this image of the Smiling Dead pre-Mel on a boat, and while this kind of does seem like nothing, if you look at the water, it's surrounded by ice. And so I think this is Ken shortly after breaking out of the Inferno, and I think he used mud and breadhead to do so. Here's where we get to a lot more of the biblical interpretation. We see a painting of a group of naked humans praying to the white angel mother, a giant white angel, which I think this group of individuals are the virtues before they got their mechanical bodies, maybe shortly after the rapture, because things still look somewhat vibrant and alive, but obviously devastated. And this very well might still be the same angel mother we saw in the pilot, because the one we see now is old and decrepit and her feathers have blackened. But here, she's pure and white. And this is also another religious thing that was never really brought up in here, but it's the Latin phrase sin don cadit. It means fine linen decays, and it was an anti-Christian, almost satanic idea that was like sprouted up by people, saying that the Bible verse of people going to heaven and being draped in fine linens is a stupid idea because even linen decays. It's not a luxury that lasts forever. So I think the Angel Mother is quite the example of that. And the next image is kind of, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But what we can see is what looks to be the whale that at the end of the pilot, the denizens of the Gaslight District had killed, as well as supposedly what Ken's butcher shop is inside of. Whale belly, butcher shop. But it's also grasping at the Gaslight District, that Dante's Inferno structure, with a hand that looks like the virtues, the mechanical virtue hand. And ironically, the surrounding, like, almost building-like material almost looks like Diligence's shoulder pads. And since we saw Ken on that boat, I think the whale might be the Inferno. I think the inside of the whale is the Inferno, and that's why the butcher shop is in the whale belly, because that's the only place in the Gaslight District that's cold enough to freeze all of the meat in his butcher shop. We then get another picture of another group of naked humans, a lot of varying body types, a lot of similar ones to the ones before, but they're approaching a massive heart, similar to the one that's being eaten in the tapestry in the laboratory, and also the one that Temperance was working on. And then immediately after that, the mark of the black hand being carved into one of those humans' back, or it looks like their back. Now, there isn't really too much to go off of with this, but some speculative ideas may be this is what gave birth to the first Rotlings, or potentially the first virtues. We don't know exactly what that heart is or what's going on here, again, of course, but if we take Temperance's experiments and just try to apply some of that onto what's going on here, especially if we imagine that large bug creature and this heart that Temperance was working on, plus the imagery from the tapestry, put that all together, and we kind of have the idea of people consistently inflict themselves with the mark of the black hand, this mark of the beast almost, and it pops out these Rotlings, these eternal creatures. And what is the thing that the angels probably want to keep popping out, especially with the fact that we see so many of them, humans, homunculuses, constant sacrifices to appease the angels and the black hand, because they are very tied together. They both are hands, one purple, one green, almost hands playing the game. Then we see an image of Mel inside a mouth, presumably Ken's, with other Kens inside. I don't really have enough to go off of with this, but it might be a swallowing the pride metaphor, but this one is the image that has me the most stumped, and I couldn't really connect it to like biblical imagery or like a popular saying, at least at face value from what I know. Then Mel is pinning an angel to a table with black hand nails, very Jesus on the cross, but obviously she's gonna interrogate an angel at some point, and it almost looks like Diligence's angel buddy, probably looking for answers, because her faith may be shattered because of the Angel Mother, but she doesn't quite believe it yet. Then a mutilated Ken being shot at, half his skull exposed. Again, another one of those images. I can't really say for certain what's going on here, but I think this might be theory, post-mutilated by the Virtue Core to get Temperance back, and perhaps maybe they capture Mel, or Mel escapes and he's being shot down by a squad of Virtue members or angry denizens of the Gaslight District that are now mad at Ken for lying about the human egg, and then a scared Mel being grabbed at by a bunch of similarly gloved hands like hers. Again, I think she's gonna find out, especially since at the end we see her open a frozen body bag, a body bag similar to the one that Ken has in his nice little freezer that I think is the Inferno, with a skeleton of her in there. I think she's gonna realize she's not a real human and that she's been artificially made. And honestly, because of this, I think Ken has a lot more with this cycle going on, and he may not be as at odds with the Virtues as we were initially led to believe. I don't think he's directly allied with them, but I think there's something going on between those two organizations that is a little bit amicable. Then we see all of the smiling dead skulls in the Inferno. Again, I think they're all going to end up in the Inferno at some point, since I think it's in that Wells belly. And I think that's where a lot of these secrets are going to come to light, and Mel's going to just like flip out. And again, leading her maybe back into the butcher shop and then beating Mud to escape. Maybe. Also, we have Part-Time Seagull bringing up some stuff that we're going to learn in the first season. Meeting Ken's ex-wife. More about Mud's past, especially since we know he's an ex-Virtue Core member. Breadhead's older brother, which is interesting because if you freeze frame in episode 1, where I got this initial data from Cartoon Universe, Breadhead is a golem. He was artificially created. Ironic. But has an older brother? Was this older brother also created by Ken? Or do all bread golems share relations? Or were they made together and then maybe Ken also stole this child? And then Mel dying in episode 3. But not really. But this is where I think is gaslighting us. I think Mel may die in episode 3. It just may not be our Mel. Wink wink, nudge nudge, humunculus humunculus.